On August 2nd, 216 BC, the army of Carthage is surrounded and faced with a Roman army of overwhelming numbers. They are so underwhelming to the opposition that they're facing. And an officer named Gisco voiced his concern to his commander, who happened to be a gentleman named Hannibal. Hannibal responds by saying, "Yes, Gisco, you are right, but there's one thing that you haven't noticed." Gisco says, "What's that, sir?" And he said, "In all of the ranks, in all of the men opposite of us, with all of the opposition that we're facing, not a single one of them is called Gisco." Those who heard the conversation began to laugh, and when the men heard their leaders laughing, they were greatly encouraged, and that battle was a rout. So what's my point? My point is, it's not the opposition that we face, but it's how we face the opposition that makes all the difference. You know, a lot of us face opposition, let's be honest, but very few of us has probably faced that type of situation. Very often the calamity and the opposition we face is somebody being angry at us or some other type of circumstance. Now, some of you guys in here have actually been in battle, and you know the difference. When you engage in something that is a life and death struggle, and you're facing literally the enemy and gunfire's happening, and you come back and face the everyday things in life, they can seem somewhat mundane. They can seem small in comparison, but when you've never faced that, then opposition can seem exponentially larger. I knew a gentleman who had been in ministry for many years, and this guy was highly motivated. He was extremely creative, and listen to this, he really, really loved God, and those are all things that are very important. This man was great at starting things, but he really struggled when it come to longevity. And it wasn't that he lacked grit, he lacked certainty. Did you hear that? He had plenty of grit, but he didn't have certainty. What does that mean? It means when opposition arose, he would begin to question. He would begin to question whether he was doing the right thing, if it was God that was directing him. He was never sure if he was opposing God or resisting the enemy. That really matters if you love God. None of us want to ever be found in that place where we're fighting against God. So that means that certainty is incredibly important. Those who correctly discern the opposition have taken the first step in overcoming the opposition. Very important. Jesus said that we should count the cost on the front end, because we will of certainty face opposition and tribulation. Nehemiah, whom we have been discussing all month, did just that. He defined the destination before he ever started the journey. Certainty and clarity, incredibly important, because we will face opposition. Him, in a recap, he stopped, he assessed his situation, and he sought God before he undertook that journey. He had known that the problem that he was going to face and the opposition that he was facing him was going to cost him, and that there would be opposition. Facing opposition successfully simply requires certainty. We have to understand that. So let's talk about some sources of opposition that we face commonly. And we're going to get into this. So some of these you've heard before. Some of these may seem somewhat superficial and obvious. Some of them we're going to dig a little bit deeper and try to really equip us a little better for facing opposition. External opposition. So what is some external opposition? Well, one is circumstances. There can be an army. I don't think we're facing an army right now at this moment. Some of our soldiers overseas are facing some armies right now, and wars seem to be escalating around the world, and we need to keep our military in our prayers as we do regularly here. But circumstances, and then there's the enemy of our souls. That's another opposition that we face. The Bible tells us clearly that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness. But we also know that the enemy often works through the selfish desires of people. And very often we find ourselves in that type of opposition, external opposition.